So welcome, and I'm here with Jad. Jad, thank you for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about Agile Cloud Management. I come from a world where we take the traditional infrastructure and move it into the software-defined data center. You're taking it even further. What's your session going to be about?
Right, so thanks for having me, first of all. So the idea behind managing infrastructure, traditional infrastructure, with cloud management, or an agile take of cloud management, is really to start treating infrastructure just like developers would treat, their software development cycles, right? And it's about the life cycle of not just the application, but also the entire infrastructure. Now, I've said for years that the more you think about infrastructure, the higher the likelihood that you're making a mistake somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea here is infrastructure, first of all, needs to just happen, be it SDDC or public cloud or whatever it is. But how I declare that infrastructure is essentially where the industry is going, where we're going, the tools we're delivering. It allows you to very openly or generically describe the infrastructure that your applications need in code, in YAML. We call this declarative infrastructure. So lots of examples of it out there, but the one I care about the most is what we're doing in cloud automation services. But the idea really is to take the practitioners and the work they're doing on the infrastructure side and just put that in code. And then you lifecycle it in code, you iterate in code, you manage it end-to-end in code, and it gets you closer to this role that's emerging called the SRE. Not quite the SRE role, but ultimately, regardless the app, regardless the infrastructure, regardless the cloud, regardless the vendor on the unit, the storage type, et cetera, should all be defined and declared in code. And essentially that's what we're working on here.
So, just a question, what industry types do you see that are actually leading towards this kind of infrastructure and this kind of techniques?
Yeah, so we're seeing the cool kids do it first, right? In fact, the cool kids help define it. So you're talking the eBays, the Googles of the world, the Amazons of the world, Facebook, obviously, and what's happening there. It's a way of life for those folks, but the enterprise is largely adopting these capabilities. We're seeing almost an abstraction of the API itself. A lot of year after year, it's the new abstraction layer, right? And this year and in years to come, I think it is really that declarative infrastructure as code that's going to be the abstraction layer, to a point where you're not even thinking about the API anymore. So the trendsetters that we're seeing are financial institutions. Big banks globally are adopting these methodologies. Google put out there this concept of the SRE, and I like to just summarize the SRE as the infrastructure person who codes, or the coder who understands infrastructure, and you can see the benefits of those things merging and how you start treating this. So financial firms, other than the cool kids, are certainly bleeding edge as far as adopting these capabilities, but we're seeing the enterprise largely do it. And VMware being VMware, our goal is to just mainstream it, make this the norm, allow the enterprises that don't typically have dedicated headcount for this type of transformation to just adopt the tools that allow you to do it.
That sounds really good. Really good. So what are the key takeaways of your session? We just spoke about that, and I think you're going to do demos as well. What's the prize, the jewels that you want to portray?
So I don't think it's a secret. The vast majority of our attendees here are the infrastructure people, are the cloud management, the folks who provide and build the services that the developers or the app owners can go and provision applications to. So my goal, specifically at VMworld, is to help that audience understand the needs of the developer, understand what some of the foundational stuff, like what does declarative infrastructure even mean? What are the developers looking for? How does the infrastructure person remain relevant in this world? Again, it's not a secret, but the traditional infrastructure architect is losing that internal consumer due to the instant-on capability of public cloud services and others. So what we want to be able to do is bridge the gap between our traditional customer and the needs of the developer, so that they can go back home and start saying, hey, I understand what you're looking for. we're going to also start treating infrastructure the same way you treat applications, and that's really the takeaway. It's mainly education, it's mainly understanding the industry and your core internal customer for our cloud architects, and then helping them with the tools to bridge the gaps.
So, that's one of the relevant discussions that I have with customers on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Is basically the big question is, my job is changing. What's it going to look like in 2-3 years? And I think that you've hit that same point. Do you come across some customers that are pushing back on this due to the traditional way of doing stuff?
Not as of late. Okay, when we were trying to set the trend early, it seemed a little premature to a lot of our customers, but others, took it and ran with it. But those customers are now understanding why we're doing this, and in full disclosure, I meet with customers all the time who are saying, look, our developers, which is the primary consumer of my services in-house, they're just going elsewhere. We can no longer provide the instant gratification of the infrastructure that they're looking for, be it, tight governance that is archaic and needs to be updated for modern applications, be it the security controls and all those things that are absolutely critical. The developer would prefer to function at the speed of business rather than the speed of legacy IT processes. So they're coming back and they're saying, yes, we understand what this will allow us to do. It makes us relevant as an internal IT org again. And in the meantime, because we are VMware, we are providing that governance, that security, that network, but happening out of band. So they now understand from an SLA perspective what the developer is looking for, the type of access, broader access actually, the instant gratification, et cetera. So yeah, there's a lot of benefit, a lot of takeaway there, and we're hoping to see enterprises in large be able to get back to the table and make IT relevant again.
Cool. Sounds interesting.
Yep.
Thank you for your time.
Yep, appreciate it.
It was great talking to you, and if anyone wants to join, the HOL session is on.
Not the HOL,
sorry,
the breakout.
The breakouts.
Unfortunately, it's on Thursday when
it's
everyone's going to have a headache. But if you can make it, and if you can't, there's the recording available from US session that you can review as well. And my only advice is, understand the content, understand the main takeaway of it. The way I look at it is this is the opportunity for the promotion of the infrastructure architect, right? It's time to move out of the bits and bytes of infrastructure and into the life cycle of declarative infrastructure. And you'll hear self-driving ops and all that stuff this week. But that's really what we're trying to build here. And I hope everyone gives it an open mind and a chance to adopt and take advantage of your learning sources and get on it.
Sounds
basically.
Good.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
And have
Appreciate
a good VMworld.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.